Let's go to Minnesota. Kirk Cousins, pretty good year last year. Do you like him at all at QB 17? Do you think that's like a upside spot about where he should be or what?
That's about where he should be. I mean, he'll return value there if he plays, all 17 games. But the thing with Cousins, he has limited upside. So, if you're going for upside in that range, maybe pass on him. Maybe take a guy like Justin Fields in that range would be a good guy to target for upside. But what you see is what you get with Cousins. He has one of the best wide receiver duos in the league with Justin Jefferson and Thielen. And I think Irv Smith will step up and have a pretty big year. So I think Kirk Cousins is a safe play, but again, just a lower ceiling. So you have to, depending on what format you're in, tailor your draft that way.
And then Dalvin Cook, is he your number 2 running back? That's where he's going right now.
Yeah, he's my number 2. You might consider a guy like Derrick Henry there, but I'm sticking with
a guy like Derrick Henry. Like
I
there's no guy like Derrick Henry.
Every year I try to make it a point to be like above ADP on Derrick Henry. It's getting really hard right now. So that's why I have number 3. Right now his ADP is number 4. I have number 3, but I can't move in above of Dalvin Cook. I think Dalvin Cook is a lock at number 2 right now.
Yeah, I would take Henry first even. I just think you factor into durability. No, seriously, like it's because like everyone said that about McCaffrey, like, oh, he's missed no games, but like he's not as big. Like Derrick Henry's durability makes sense. You know what I mean? Like it's not just like, okay, he's happened to be mostly healthy and rarely miss games. Like look at his body and the way he's built. Like it just makes sense that he's durable, right? Whereas like Cook, he's had some issues at points in his career. McCaffrey now is coming, until that armor breaks, and it will eventually with Henry, but until that armor breaks, man, like I'm not saying I would take him in every draft, but like if I'm, we do so many drafts, like I'm have 100 drafts and I get 100 first picks. I'm taking Derrick Henry there, like 30% of the time at least. You know what I mean? That's just
I give that speech every year. Thank you for doing it for me. But when it comes to projecting running backs, you mention all the time too that we project 1 and 2 missed games for every running back, mostly by default. Derrick Henry's the only guy I just manually raise it lower it to like a half to 1 game miss because he's just watch the guy. He's durable. I compare it like if he gets like a hamstring injury, it's less Henderson because he's like a monster truck that gets like a thumbtack in the tire. It's like doesn't matter. So he's the guy where especially this year is probably the last year I would say of his prime where I'm projecting him for almost the full 17 game season. But I would say maybe next year is when we start to dock him for the, the standard 1 or 2 games missed because I think he is going to go off that cliff and it could be like next year. But I think he's going to have one more really good year this year.
I'm gonna let the eye test just dictate it for me because like if he's in like week 17 this or whatever 18, I don't know, his schedule's all crazy this year, but like whatever late in the year and he's like throwing everyone sideways and trucking people and going for 300 yards, I'm not changing anything. You know what I mean? For 2022, like that's just not happening.
Back to the Vikings running backs. Is Madison one of the best backup running backs to stash? Is he not?
Yeah, it's probably not because they drafted Nwangu, right? Like in the 4th round. I mean, No,
I think if anything, he might be like the Mike Boone replacement, but I think that they're already saying they intend him to be on special teams. I didn't get that draft pick. I don't think he's going to be a threat to Madison's workload, like either way, even if Dalvin Cook is healthy or out. I think Madison will still be the guy.
Okay. I mean, I'm not as high on him as I was in past years with like, okay, this guy's a slam dunk handcuff because like he never really has fully taken advantage of it. He's like either gotten hurt himself or in the games that he's been like that number 1, he hasn't been like super efficient. He was pretty good as a runner like last year.
Week 17 last year when it didn't matter. But yeah, it was Week 6 was when he replaced Cook and he was a massive bust, but then he made up for it in week 17 with the 2 touchdown game. So yeah, he's been mixed when replacing Cook, but I still think he still has that RB1/2 upside when Cook's out.
Yeah, and he's been around 3 yards after contact for his career, which is pretty solid. He's I guess I'm probably with ADP on him. I think he's not, there's a little more uncertainty this year, but yeah, he still does have that upside. Speaking of upside, Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, these guys were locks for most of last year. Jefferson is going as the wide receiver 8, Dewin the wide receiver 17. How high is the ceiling for Jefferson?
It's massive. Definitely love his upside. He's going to build off a record-setting rookie season. I think he's only going to get better. But when it comes to him and Thielen specifically, that concerns me a bit. Is just this offense has a low weekly floor. So I measured dud rates, so percentage of time where these guys finish outside the top 60. And Jefferson was 25% of the time. Granted, he was kind of like getting eased into this offense early in the season, but Thielen was 27%. And those are pretty high rates for, wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2. And that goes to, they can become a bit run heavy with Dalvin Cook, or, Kirk Cousins can have a bad game. So it's not necessarily their fault, but they had like a lower weekly floor than other wide receivers in this range. So that's the only concern for me. But certainly when they have a good week, they tend to go off and they give you those spike weeks. So, when it comes to these guys, don't expect like consistent week to week production based on this offense, but they're definitely worth their ADP right now.
Yeah, I think the thing with a guy with guys on this team is that their defense is probably going to be better than it was last year, and so that's going to kind of, like you said, go back to that. You may have weeks where only one goes off, as where it was last week. Their defense was so bad and it was average even when it improved, that it was just they had to throw every week. And speaking of throwing, Irv Smith, a guy we didn't talk about, I know the prop is on him. Where are you going with this prop?
Yeah, so I love him, and they don't really have a number 3 receiver, so I consider him basically the number 3 receiver in this offense. Should be a lot better with Kyle Rudolph gone. The sky's the limit with him. He's entering year 3. So curious how high you are. I'm assuming you're high on him as well, but where are you projecting him for receptions? Because I have him at 49.5 right now.
50.
Please tell me
it's 50. Wow. Is this like the third or fourth time too? Like that we've been like within a point. That's nuts. 50 catches, I think is fair for him. I think the ceiling's even higher. We finally saw him get into that like 80%, 85% routes run of like a true number 1 go-to tight end near a couple of games with Rudolph out. I still think, they use some 2 tight end sets because they have to, looking at their receiver depth chart. But I don't think it'll impact Smith. So yeah, and Smith he's had the big games. Like we've seen him with the big games volume wise. We've seen him with the multi-touchdown game. So Smith at tight end 17 is way too low considering his role on the offense and his talent level.
It was a small sample size, but last year Rudolph was out the last 4 games. So we got a sneak peek and he was tight end 8 over that stretch. So we've seen him and Tyler Conklin, don't get me wrong, he'll step up in the number 2. Tyler Conklin was there, and Irv Smith was still the tight end 8 over that small sample size.
Absolutely. That's kind of the ceiling there. It's like, and you need that and I mean, it could be even higher than that. I mean, let's say, Thielen's getting older. If he misses a couple games, Smith is probably the number 2 target. So